Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We're presented by CLNS Media. Today on the show, we got good friend of the program, Chris Stone, on. We're going to do a little NBA draft podcasting here, getting back into the nitty gritty, the bread and butter of what makes this show what it is. Chris, you can hear an somewhat cloudy Hollywood having some random helicopter. I'm sorry, it's not an airplane. Fly. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It snowed for the first time this season today, so I got to deal with that experience. And it briefly, while I went to go get lunch, was hailing, which was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, like, make that move out to LA. You gotta get away from the snow. Nobody
There's like fires and stuff. I don't know. It's like the exact opposite.
Yeah, it kind of is. It's kind of crazy. I mean, it's not something we should joke about, but like, you know, it's been
seems not good.
Been a not great time out here in Southern California. Hopefully everyone is getting through it in a reasonable manner. But, oh man, we're going to talk NBA draft today. We're going to talk Zion Williamson. We're going to talk about North Carolina fans running up in my mentions for complaining about their old ball coach, Roy Williams. We're going to talk about Kevin Porter being someone that a lot of people are very excited about, that I still have some pretty serious questions about. We're going to talk about the best guard in the class, which he might be a part of now, to be honest. Quentin Grimes, Romeo, Langford. We're going to leave Kevin Porter kind of by himself. We're going to talk about the Kentucky guys and their start to the season so far after their just absolute demolition against Duke. And then we're going to talk about the bigs. We still haven't previewed the bigs yet, despite the fact that the season has started. I mean, maybe it'll give us a little bit better of an inroad in, but I don't know. I would say it's just more bad planning.
Yep, you know, those things happen, and this big class is fine, so we got to see a little bit of them already, which is good.
Yeah. One of those guys who is heavier than just about all of these bigs is Zion Williamson.
Yes.
By the way, Zion Williamson, great DraftKings potential, and DraftKings is a sponsor today, so shout out DraftKings. Zion Williamson so far has been just the most absurd that could possibly be envisioned for what he did. 25.3 points, 10.7 rebounds, 2.7 assists. His PER is a robust 52.9. His true shooting percentage, 79.9. 17 offensive rebounding rate, 20 assist rate, 10 block rate, 7.8 turnover rate. Usage on 29% of his possessions. He might not be human. Like, we might be at the stage where we cannot actually confirm nor deny that Zion Williamson is a deity sent from above to come and just, like, end basketball worlds.
Yeah, I was thinking after that dunk the other night that he's the rocket that's going to help Elon Musk get us off the rock. That's like the best thing that I can think that he's used for. You forgot to mention the Russell Westbrook-esque 24.4 blocks plus minus, which when compared to RJ Barrett's negative 0.3 BPM early in the season really stands out.
Not a big box plus minus guy, I will say that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, just not much of a believer in it, to be honest. But what I will say is that Zion Williamson's really good and is like a very real alien. 6'7", 285 pounds. He's JJ Watt size. And there's an image of him against Eastern Michigan going up for a dunk where, like, I retweeted it, and he could have dunked the ball if he was, like, if the rim was at the top of the square on the backboard. It is the most insane thing to me that this person exists.
Yeah, and he's like staring down at the rim in that photo. He's just absolutely insane. And I think people are finally starting to see that he's not just those dunks, but those dunks are really, really fun and parts of the game. And he does so much more on the floor that you're just like, oh, like not only can this 285-pound guy jump really high and throw down these totally insane dunks, but he can also like Euro step around guys in ways that people who are 285 pounds shouldn't be able to move at full speed. And I think that, you know, now that he's getting more of that opportunity, it's easier to see how he starts to fit as a prospect.
Yeah, like, he's always done that. That's the thing that, like, and that's the reason that, like, I had Zion at number 2. I think you had Zion at number 2 right?
Yes.
I think that maybe ESPN had him at 2, maybe 3, something like that.
Yeah, I think like mostly heading into the season, he was pretty close to a consensus top 2 guy.
Yeah, so he's always done this shit. Like, this is not new information. It is somewhat new information that he's doing it against like hyper elite dudes that are athletic and ridiculous. Like what he did against Kentucky is insane and awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, Army and Eastern Michigan obviously don't have the horses to keep up with Zion, but it does say something that he's doing it against Division I play rather than Adidas circuit play, which is somewhere below EYBL in terms of talent level, and also Spartanburg Day competition where like he was going up against like you and me playing basketball. Right. So there is something to that, but it's just ridiculous what he's doing. And I'm glad that people are realizing that he is more than a dunker and that like the other shit that he does beyond just being more than a dunker is super fun too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think he is one of the smartest basketball players in this class. I don't know that I would anoint him highest basketball IQ in the class yet, but he's like probably top 5. Really smart, gets around the floor really well. I think we're seeing, like, yes, Eastern Michigan and Army are not the best competition, but they do have bigger guys. And a lot, I think, of what you saw in high school with Zion was, like, he was bigger than everyone else on the floor. And you kind of wonder, like, can his physicality translate against guys who have actual size? And although Army and Eastern Michigan aren't necessarily the best teams, they do at least have like Division I athletes, and they're big enough, right?
Yeah. And like Army is very disciplined and well coached in terms of like their defensive rotations. Again, it didn't matter because he's just like a large adult son who went for 27 and 16 against them with 6 blocks. But like they actually did, despite what his stat line looks like, they did make him work for it a little bit.
Yeah. And like coming into the season, the biggest question is like, well, is he going to shoot? Can he shoot? And I think what we're starting to see is like, it would be great if he shoots, but he doesn't necessarily have to shoot to be an efficient offensive player.
Probably true.
Well, he's so much bigger and so much stronger than everybody else that like, if you guard him with someone who's too small, he's going to go through that person because he is just physically stronger than them. And if you guard him with a big, like they did in the Kentucky game, he just goes past them. And so it would be nice for him to shoot to reach his full potential. And he's going to have to shoot to reach, the apex of what he could be. But like, he can still be a very, very good NBA player, even if he does not.
Yeah, I think that that's probably true. In fact, I think it's definitely true. The next question to ask here is, have you moved to the point where you have Zion at number 1?
I think so. I released a mock draft this week. I put Zion at number 1, sort of projecting that a lot of what he is doing will continue. When I release my next big board, it is likely that he will be number 1. I just think that the upside gap between he and RJ Barrett, who are, in my mind, kind of the only 2 people competing for that spot right now, is fairly sizable. Like, RJ has a really good floor, and there's, I think, very little doubt he will be a good NBA player. But there's a chance that Zion is great. Like, really good.
There's a chance Zion steps onto the floor, like, next season in the NBA and is, like, immediately a top 30 player in the league.
Yeah.
Like, which is insane.
I think seeing that with RJ, or that path for RJ, not even necessarily in the short term, but even in the long term, not that RJ won't necessarily be a top 30 player at some point, but
I think he probably will, to be honest.
Sure, yeah. But the upside of Zion, I think, is significant at the tail ends of his curve that, represent the top 10% of what he could be or whatever, that I feel fairly comfortable that if I had the number 1 pick today, I would take Zion.
So I agree with you. What I will say is, like, I don't think it's over. No. The big thing that I think NBA teams are going to have to reckon with is the long-term viability of a person who puts this much force on his very large body. It's going to require extensive medical checks from the team that selects him to make sure that everything is structurally sound. This is something that I think is like sneaky and has gone under the radar that I mentioned in my profile, but like he suffered 3 injuries in the last like 18 months or so. Not like huge injuries, but injuries that would have kept him out for probably 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks in the NBA. So look, I think that you're right. I would take him number 1 at this stage until we have information contrary to that. But there are like real things here that still need to be figured out.
Yeah, 100%. There are definitely questions. There are fewer questions that exist with RJ if your interest is in taking the person who is the safest. Then he's the guy. But, you know, we know that the draft is one of basically the best places for you to find superstars, and the chance that Zion will be a superstar is probably higher than the chance that RJ will be.
Yeah, I don't think there's any debate about that now, for sure. Yeah. Let's talk about Nassir Little. So Nassir Little is one of the guys that was in like this kind of, you know, very clear top 4, right? Of him, RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, Zion Williamson. And so far Nassir Little is coming off the bench. He is not really like a huge part of what North Carolina is doing right now, which is very strange and bizarre and odd and everything. And I like tweeted about the fact that Roy Williams is like keeping him on the bench, which is very weird and odd and bizarre. And all these North Carolina fans are like, well, you just don't understand Roy Williams. You just don't understand what Roy is all about. He is trying to build this team. It's all about the we, it's not the me. And I'm just like sitting here and like, what the fuck are we doing? It would be like Toronto not starting Kawhi Leonard after they got Kawhi Leonard, being like, well, you know what? He hasn't been here before.
Ben Juno is real good.
Yeah, like he hasn't been here before, and you know we're just not sure like what the fit is yet, so we're gonna bring him along slowly. That's what Nassir is in college basketball. And like, don't give me the he's never played college basketball before. Roy Williams has been evaluating Nassir Little for 3 years probably. I have certainly been evaluating Nassir Little for 2 years now. So like, we know what Nassir Little is. We know how good he is.
And it's also not like he's been bad when he's been on the court for them.
He's been good when he's been on the court for them. Like, I don't understand it. It is the crazy, like he's averaging 22.5 points per 40 minutes right now, 9 rebounds, 2.5 steals, 2.5 blocks. And
playing 21.3 minutes per game, which is 5th most on the team, with a 20% usage rate. It's pretty ridiculous to me. And the person who is playing over him is Garrison Brooks, mostly.
It would genuinely be like Roy or Nick Nurse going in Toronto, well, Jonas Valanciunas has been here, so we're going to start Jonas instead of Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous to me. And like, from a North Carolina standpoint, like as a basketball team, I also think that it's kind of ridiculous, because if they just played Nassir Little over Garrison Brooks, they would have probably one of the like 3 best offensive lineups in college basketball. Yeah. But just in terms of like quality of player, it's kind of ridiculous that he's not playing more. It's a bummer from our perspective, because I don't know that, you know, maybe as the season progresses we'll get a different look, but I don't know that we're going to get to see the full repertoire of Nassir Little against college competition, which, you know, we know enough about Nassir Little to know that he's really good and stuff like that, but it would be nice to be able to see that. And I just don't know that we're going to get it, because Roy seems very committed to doing things the way that he has always done things.
Yeah, and like, he's super excited about Kobe White. Like, Kobe White is playing only 22 minutes. Like, he's not playing that many more minutes than Nassir Little, but he's starting, and like, he's actually playing with the units that you assume North Carolina is going to close games with, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really understand it. The reason for not having him on the floor is beyond me. It's not like he's played and been bad. I'm hopeful that will change over the course of the season, but I don't know that there's a ton else to think about it.
Yeah, and like, you bring up the idea that like you don't think it's good for North Carolina. And like, look, I understand Roy's point of view. He wants to play with 2 bigs. Like, that's just what he's always done. He wants to play with Garrison Brooks and Luke Mayo on the floor at all times, because they crash the glass so consistently. They think that it helps them defensively. Like, this is what Roy Williams has done for years, and I get it. But I think you need to adjust to what you've got, like in a substantial way. Like, to me, this North Carolina team is probably one of the 3 most talented teams in the country, if not like second to Duke. I straight up believe that. Like, I honestly think they are more talented than Kansas.
That's probably true.
Yeah, like there's just no reason to do this right now. Like you can say, well, he's a little bit behind defensively. He's still like defending fine out there. He's missed like a couple rotations I've seen, and I've watched probably parts of all 3 of their games and like all of one of their game. So I've probably seen, they've played 120 minutes so far. I've seen probably 85 of the minutes.
Yeah.
And like I'm just sitting here like I'm not seeing it right now. I'm not seeing what is missing here.
Yeah, I'm not either. And it's kind of a bummer, obviously.
Yeah, it's a huge bummer, and it just is. It's very, very strange. It's almost like I don't think he's doing this because I think he realizes that Nassir is just so much like so higher up than all of this.
Yeah.
Like in terms of being a draft prospect, that like it's impossible to keep him for more than a year probably. But like it seems like he's like trying to hold him back for a year.
Sure.
So I don't know. Let's move on to Kevin Porter. So Kevin Porter is a guy that I had in the lottery coming into the year. Where were you on Kevin Porter? He plays for USC, by the way. Was like a top 40 recruit in the country, but that was very clear by the time that like April rolled around that it was way too low, and that like he was very clearly one of the like 15 best prospects in the class.
I think at the start of the season I had him 17th, but I would have him as a lottery prospect already. Yeah,
so Kevin Porter, smooth lefty, can get separation with ease, particularly going backward with a crossover, has a really, really clean-looking jump shot that he's improved over the course of the last couple of years, kid out of Rainier Beach in Seattle. So right now he's averaging 14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He's one of those guys where the highlights just look fucking ridiculous. Like his highlights are absurd, and it's just so all very clearly translatable to the NBA that it's difficult to not just look at the highlights and go, okay, this guy's going to figure it out. Having said that, like I was at the Vanderbilt USC game, and I'm still just a little bit hesitant. I'm not a lot hesitant. Like he's a very good player who, like I said, I have in the lottery and have from the start of the year. But like some people were talking like he's going to be like a top 5 pick. I'm not there yet. Not there just quite yet.
Yeah, I'm definitely not to top 5 levels. If I were pushing it, the back end of the top 10 probably seems right. The thing with him that stands out relative to the other guards in the class, right, is what you mentioned about his ability to get and create his own shot. In terms of, some of the guys we'll talk about here in a minute, like Quentin Grimes and Romeo Langford, I think Kevin Porter has shown so far to be more adept at getting a basket when he needs to, whether it's via the step back with the crossover or going towards the basket. He's just like, he's stronger than those guys, a little more athletic than those guys, and that allows him to do more at the rim than they're available for. And so if the question is, what skills, like you said, are translatable and valuable in the NBA context, Porter has one that's very important in terms of who's going to get the ball when my team needs to get a basket.
Yeah.
And I think we can feel comfortable with him in that role. Now, there are certainly question marks around that, but
so like he's shooting
terms of that skill, he's high up there.
So like he's made 3 of 9 from 3 and is 6-11 from the foul line. Like,
yeah, those are concerning numbers to start the season.
He's also just a ridiculous finisher. Everything he does, like in terms of his jump shot, does seem to be like between 16 and 20 feet in terms of like step back stuff.
Right.
That stuff is like just not as valuable inherently. He needs to be able to extend his range back to 23 feet if he's going to make those step backs consistently. I mean, I like his shot mechanics. I think they actually look pretty good. I think that it's a nice, quick, low release point. He used to have like kind of a longer release where he would bring the ball higher up on his head, and it would take him longer after he got the separation with that wicked crossover. Like he's always had that shit. The fact that he's quickened it up and gotten everything together is what has made him such an effective player to start the year. I'll also say this, like against Vanderbilt, like people are talking about like the fact that he seems to make action plays defensively. Yes and no. USC certainly hides him a lot by playing him like on the wing of their zone. He's okay. Yep. Like he's pretty fine at it. He's not like bad at it by any stretch. He's solid, but he also just has a propensity to foul and doesn't really understand like game situation yet. So for instance, he picked up like a bullshit 4th foul with 9 minutes left against Vanderbilt, came back in with 7 minutes left and fouled out 90 seconds later with like just under 6 minutes left. And it's like the difference between him and, for instance, Darius Garland, right? Like he was playing Darius Garland in that game. He picked up his 4th foul 30 seconds after Darius Garland picked up his 4th foul. They both came in like right around the same time of the game, and Garland didn't foul out because he understood how to manage his game situation. Porter doesn't really know that yet. He doesn't really get that. Like if you watch, I can't tell how much of this comes through on the TV, but like if you watch Porter, Enfield has to like move him around a little bit and like make sure he knows where to be on out of bounds plays, right? It's just like little stuff like that where the line between Nick Young and James Harden is thinner than what you would think it is. It mostly has to do with like shot efficiency and like decision making, we'll call it. I don't know that we have like that line is basically Kevin Porter, I would say. And I don't know which way it's going to go.
The Nick Young, James Harden spectrum with Kevin Porter is the line.
Yeah.
It all makes so much sense now. Yeah, I mean...
It's kind of ridiculous, but like it's kind of true.
No, it's not entirely false at all. I mean, I think the reason people are excited with Porter is that it's hard to find guys like him who create shots like he can.
Yeah.
And by the way, especially in this draft.
Having seen him in person, he is every bit of 6'6" and has a great frame.
He is a big dude.
Yeah.
Big dude.
Big dude who absorbs contact, super explosive. Like he's again, I have him like right now at the back end of my top 10. He is ridiculously good and ridiculously talented.
Yep.
And when I say like the line between Nick Young and James Harden is thin, I don't mean that as like a negative toward Nick Young. Like Nick Young played 750 NBA games, started probably 300 of them, and had an awesome 10 or 11 year career. Like there's nothing inherently bad about being Nick Young, despite the fact that he's essentially a meme. Like it's a good career, but if you're taking a guy at number 8, you probably don't want Nick Young, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's 100% true. And realistically, like, anytime we're talking about prospects in this range, the margins are super thin, right? It's not like we're talking about, you know, someone who's going to go 40th overall and the things that they're really good at. I think oftentimes in these types of discussions with guys like Kevin Porter or guys who are in this range, it becomes very easy to focus on the negatives because we have to split hairs between prospects we have at 5 and prospects we have at 10. And so while a lot of what we have said about Kevin Porter is somewhat negative, he's still really, really good. It's just that we know the reasons he's really, really good, and we have to draw those lines about why he may not be higher than, you know, where he is now.
Yeah, like his ability to gain separation is
great.
Better than, I mean, it's better than RJ Barrett. Like if you told me that Kevin Porter has a better NBA career than RJ Barrett, would not be shocked about that at all. Like, I think RJ Barrett's safer, and I would take RJ Barrett ahead of Kevin Porter, but like Kevin Porter's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Let's talk quickly about Quentin Grimes and Romeo Langford. You wanted to talk about Quentin Grimes. You're the resident Kansas man here, the resident Jayhawk, the Bill Self fan who loves him above all else. Tell me,
future Les Miles fan. Thank you.
Future Les Miles fan. How deep do you get into Kansas football, man? Like, please tell me it's not deep.
Look, I'm not really deep into Kansas football. I used to be. I'm, like, pretty into how much Kansas fans are into the coaching search. So, like, I don't know if you follow it at all, but, like, there's flight trackers. There's, like, a thing on 24/7 that has, like, 400,000 views. Some guy went to the airport the other night and, like, jumped a fence while on Periscope, while asking who was going to pay his bail, to run the plane to try to see who was on it when it came back.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. And some news media guys like tweeted out some pictures of Jeff Long, the AD, walking off the plane with a random guy, and they were like, who knows who this guy is? And like, does anybody have any idea? Like, thinking it was a coaching candidate, and it turned out that it was just a pilot.
Good God.
Yeah. So Kansas fans are real into the Kansas football coaching search, and I'm into how into they are the coaching search.
I love this. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
This is the kind of content I crave.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Quentin Grimes, tell me what you think of Quentin Grimes so far.
Quentin Grimes, also really, really good. unlikely to shoot 6 for 10 for 3 for all of his games. But probably the thing that stood out, and we talked about this on an earlier podcast, is he looks like a quality and competent distributor. He had 10 assists against Vermont. A decent percentage of those, I think 8 of them went to Udoka Azubuike and came on like post-entry passes, but that he has the touch to throw those passes over the top and stuff like that is not necessarily something that exists for all of the freshmen. He makes really nice reads out of pick and roll. He's thrown a couple of nice lob passes. I think he's thrown at least one kind of pass along the baseline to the opposite corner that looked really good. And I just think we're starting to get a handle on the potential of him as a playmaker and ball handler at the next level, which I think most people thought existed, but wanted to see actualized to some degree. And I think we're starting to get some of that, and that's nice.
Yeah, I like it too. So he's done he's kind of had 2 separate games that have been very different, right?
Yes.
Against Michigan State, he was the 3-point gunner, catch and shoot 3-point shooter who knocked down 6 of 10. And showed a better propensity to make shots, at least. The mechanics have always been there. We talked about that, too. It's more he has made shots.
Yes.
Against Vermont, as you mentioned, he was more of a distributor. He had the double-double, 10 points, 10 assists. Doesn't really turn the ball over either. He doesn't really get sped up in the way that a lot of freshman guards do, so that's a good sign. Just very efficient all across the board from Quentin Grimes so far. There's a lot to be excited about. I don't know that I want to taint it with anything negative. He has a great frame. I think that he has utilized that frame pretty well defensively so far. Do you have any thoughts on him defensively yet?
Not a ton. I think he's been fine, but
yeah, that's where I'm at.
I think in my mind, I've paid more attention to Devon Dotson defensively than I have Quentin Grimes.
Yeah, I mean Dotson's the bigger
Dotson's
question
really good.
mark. Yeah.
Going
in, and Dotson, I think, he's been good so far defensively, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think he's been pretty good at the point of attack in terms of ball pressure and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, overall, Quentin Grimes, really good. Would be right around where he is on my board now. I had him at 6th coming into the year, would probably be right around there. The guy at 5th coming into the year was Romeo Langford. Romeo Langford is also showcasing some things that we needed to know about him. And that's a really great sign, I think. So last night he drops, I think, 22 points on 8 of 15 from the field. He had, I think, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, if memory serves. So that stuff is all really good, because the big question that I had about Romeo Langford coming into the year was how would he defend, because he has always played really hard. That's the thing. Langford has always played with aggressiveness and toughness, but he just had never had any accountability defensively. So he was never asked to sit down and defend X player for 40 minutes. And I liked what he did last night against Marquette. I thought he was pretty good. He was an action player. Got into passing lanes really well. Had a couple of those blocks. That was really great. And just generally, he actually looked like he had a better understanding of angles coming off of screens and guarding and pick and rolls, how to get skinny over screen. He did a lot of really good stuff, I thought, last night.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of someone who was going to hold him accountable for defense, he ended up in a good spot, I think, for that. Yep. And yeah, I mean, I was certainly impressed with his defensive effort, especially against Marquette. For people who don't know, Marquette's probably one of the better offensive teams in college basketball.
Yep.
Shoot a ton of threes, run people off of screens, difficult to defend.
Very well spaced offense. It's not an NBA level offense, but they have shooters all over the floor. Marcus Howard, particularly their point guard, is is it crazy to call him college basketball Steph Curry? He's nowhere near as good as Steph, but he's the same guy, pull up from 28 feet and go.
Yeah, the style is similar.
Yeah. So that Langford is doing that is really good. I'm very excited that he is playing hard defensively.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Kind of like Grimes passing, it's one of those skills we wanted to watch for, and it's good to see it come to fruition.
Yeah, the big thing now, he needs to shoot it better. He's only made 2 of 12 from 3 and 11 of 21 from the foul line. So got to shoot it better, Romeo. But good signs nonetheless, given his just kind of overall IQ for scoring the basketball. The last thing that we wanted to talk about before we get into an ad break here is Kentucky. The Kentucky Wildcats have had a very weird start to the year. Just a very strange start to the year. And the tough game against Southern Illinois, who I think is better than what most people think they are. A very experience-laden team going against a Kentucky team that just doesn't have that yet. It's kind of a trip-up spot, right? The Duke game was a fucking disaster for so many reasons. But Kentucky comes back, blows the doors off of North Dakota. They look good. They looked like a team that they should have, at least, for a night. P.J. Washington goes for 25 and 7. Keldon Johnson plays his typical, low usage, super energetic, tough defensive, 12 and 10 game, right? Mm-hmm. Tyler Hero goes for 18 points after a super rough start. Having said that, this was against North Dakota. So, we need to take all this with a grain of salt, and see what they do against real teams, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they don't play another good team until December, so they will have a lot of tune-up time to figure out what they are. You mentioned P.J. Washington finally having a game. He laid kind of 2 duds, but in this game knocked down some outside shots, which is a big positive in terms of what we want to see from what we want to see from his development. I'm sold on Keldon Johnson. I think he's really, really good. I'm less sold on Tyler Hero. I think against bigger bodies than North Dakota, he looked bad. Just not physically built to handle that yet with a game that sort of needs it. But we'll see how they develop and mesh. I don't think that they've figured out playing time and who should play with who and how that fits quite yet either. And that makes it tough.
It does kind of feel like, I thought Hero coming into the year was like a 2 or 3 year player, and people out of Kentucky were very excited because he's a knockdown shooter and he knows how to play and super high IQ. I'm just starting to go back to the fact that I think he's like a 2 or 3 year player, which is totally fine, and he'll be probably a pro someday, but it's just coming along a little bit more slowly in terms of his physical adjustment to the game.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
The other thing we need to talk about is the point guard situation.
It exists. There are point guards.
They do have point guards. So what ended up happening last night was, they started Ashton Hagans in game 1. They have since now gone to Emmanuel Quickley. Emmanuel Quickley played 27 minutes to Hagans 16 minutes last night. Quickley figured some things out, wasn't as bad as he had been in the first couple of games. The point guard position, if Quickley can hold it down, that is great. I think Hagans probably has a higher ceiling if he can eventually figure out how to slow down a little bit. I think he's a better distributor. He's certainly a better defender. But right now, it looks like Quickley is the better option. I think that the offense just runs better when he's out there. Yeah,
I think from a Kentucky being good at basketball perspective, that's entirely accurate. And I think that's probably reflected in the minutes that they got last night. Quickley plays 27. Hagans and Konate Green played 16 apiece. And so I suspect that that's what we'll see, at least in the short term, unless they decide to test Hagans a little bit more. But he really, I think, struggled through those first couple of games in ways that perhaps were not necessarily expected. I mean, he scored 4 points in 3 games so far, and that's not great. With 7 turnovers.
Yeah, so it's probably worth throwing out Hoop Lens hasn't even been adjusted yet for last night's game, but even if you use the Southern Illinois game, which is probably a better barometer, right?
Yeah.
They were what they were a little bit better with Hagans on the floor, it looks like, I guess, but their turnover rate was 42% while he was on the floor. Whereas with Quickley, it was 24.5%. The offense was at 1.14 per possession versus with Hagans, it was at just slightly over 1, or no, it was exactly 1. So, it's just going to take time. I think it's very clear that this is going to take time.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Let's talk about DraftKings. I don't think I would take many players from Kentucky right now for a DraftKings lineup because they don't really have guys to get them the ball consistently. But Basketball season is back, which means that it's time to put your fantasy basketball knowledge to the test with One Day Fantasy Basketball at DraftKings. It's giving away over $400 million in prizes this season. No matter what your skill level is, there's a contest waiting for you at DraftKings. Drafting your team is simple. Just select 8 players and stay under the $50,000 salary cap. Earn points when your players score, assist, block, rebound, and more. The best part is that you get to draft a new team every day without any commitment. There is no better way to turn your love of basketball into cash. Just go over, download the app, head over to DraftKings.com now. Use my code THEORY, THEORY, to support the show and play free with your first deposit. And remember, there are going to be $400 million in prizes up for grabs this season. That's code THEORY, THEORY, to play for free with your first deposit only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Let's talk about bigs, I guess. Do we have anything else that we're, super enthused about right now?
No, I don't think so. Those are the pretty good ones.
Okay. So the first big on my list here is Daniel Gafford. Would Daniel Gafford be your top big?
Probably now. He would not have been prior to Jontay Porter's injury.
Okay. So like just the injury is what changes it for you.
Yeah, I think so.
So Gafford has started the year pretty well, in my opinion. Against Texas, 20 points and 12 rebounds with 2 blocks was a big reason why Texas only shot like 30% from 2-point range. Like, he was just a monster around the basket. He does have 6 turnovers in both of his games so far this year, but like, it's because they're asking him to do way more than what an NBA team or like a reasonable team will ask him to do in terms of creating offense. He is purely a rim runner, set a screen, really good screen setter, roll to the basket, catch the ball at its highest, catch point way above the defense, and throw down. He is the guy that can also kind of spot up a little bit and shoot. Like, do we think that he can kind of shoot? Because I do.
Potentially, yeah. I think it's going to take some work, but it's in play. Probably never, well, I don't want to say never, but unlikely out to the 3-point line, but probably someone who will at some point be able to knock down a mid-range shot.
Yeah, I think that like he is, like I think like year 2 in the NBA, he'll be able to knock down mid-range shots.
Sure.
Good defender. Very active defender, really wants to defend, which is a skill. Like, the fact that he gives a shit defensively matters.
Yeah.
Questionable in terms of defending in space, but the thing that I wrote over at The Athletic, you should go read about the thing that I wrote on Daniel Gafford over at The Athletic. He really like understands how the game is going with the NBA. He knows that he needs to guard 1 through 5. He sees guys like Bam Adebayo and everyone else out there guarding 1 through 5 and understands like, hey, I need to be able to do that. Having said that, he does have like kind of high hips, and it takes him a little bit longer to get his strides going. And just, he does like sit down and defend, but like he doesn't really have the technique yet.
Yeah. I think that the concerns with Gafford exist largely in archetype, right? He is, as you said, a rim runner, someone who really excels in pick and roll, in transition. Like, he beats guards down the floor in transition, which is really nice to have a high percentage finisher like that able to get down the court so quickly. But he's also just kind of a rim protector, someone who right now would likely need to play in drop back pick and roll coverages.
Yep.
And just protect the rim in that sense. And the number of those centers who exist in the NBA today is dwindling and coming down. So, he faces a tough task in terms of what he needs to be good at. Now, the good news is that the things he needs to be good at, rim protection, rebounding, although he's a okay, not great rebounder, and efficient scoring around the basket off the offensive glass, and as a pick and roll scorer, are all things I think he is pretty good at. It's just that the margin for error of someone with his skill set, if he isn't a 5-position defender, if he doesn't develop the jump shot, is thinner than it would be for someone who could, say, shoot.
Yes, I agree with all of that. Honestly, like, I had him at 10 to start the year. I'd probably move him down a little bit.
Yeah.
I do like him. I think that he is an NBA player. At the very least, I think he's a backup. The key is like whether or not he's a backup or a starter, really, more than anything.
And there's certainly worlds where he starts. I think it's just that the number of starters who fit his profile has gone down.
So the next guy I have here is Bol Bol. How much Bol Bol have you seen so far and like just generally in your life?
Not a ton, but enough to have formed an opinion.
Okay. So give me your thoughts before I kind of go to town.
Sure. I think he is a polarizing prospect in that the things that he does really well are unique and important and separators from people who are as tall and as big as him, even though there's few people as tall and as big as him. His ability to pull up as a jump shooter is unique. His ability to get to the basket, he has a better handle than anyone who's in his general size realm. He eats up space with his length, 7'8" wingspan, that I think makes up for some of the basketball IQ and effort questions. But the things that he has question marks surrounding are also large and concerning. So while he has this unique skill set, the questions that exist about motor and effort and ability to defend in space and, basketball IQ type stuff, and frankly, he's shooting under 50% on twos as a 7'2" guy, is embarrassing, are also big and large and concerning in the same way that all of the things he is unique and good at are so great. I don't know that there's a lot of middle ground, I guess is what I would say.
Well, what the key about guys like that is then it's that you need to situationally handle them, right? To me, that's what it all comes down to, is that Bol is above all kind of a situational guy. Not like a situational guy in that like he can't become an NBA starter, but it's going to take the right scheme to work around him. Like I went on Daniel LaRue's podcast a couple weeks ago and we talked about Bol, and to me, like the best possible scheme fit for him is Portland. Portland plays drop coverage with their pick and roll defenders. They're comfortable doing that. They need a guy who can space the floor from the 5 because their 4 and their 3 aren't particularly good at it. We've seen it with Zach Collins, the effect that he's had on their offense so far this year. To me, Bol is like kind of a souped up Zach Collins. He can shoot it better, and he's bigger and longer and taller and everything that you look for there, and probably more skilled with the ball in his hands and everything. But it is situational more than anything. I think it's right. He needs to get to the right scheme.
Yeah. So I guess what I would say is I see the upside that some people see in him and understand what that looks like. I think the chances that he actualizes that, both in terms of, playing hard all the time and doing that, and like you said, scheme and fit, are pretty low, which is why I don't view him as like a top 8 prospect in the class.
Yeah, so like I had him at 14 coming into the year. So like end of the lottery. Mm-hmm. I probably would slide him up a little bit from where I had him at the beginning of the year. I think he probably would be ahead of Gafford for me because I think that the margin for error is greater. Having said that, like the fact that he is definitely like the ultimate highlights player, like how people think Zion Williamson is like a highlights guy, right? Like a guy who is good on YouTube videos and Instagram, but like not a great player. That actually is what like a lot of Bol Bol is. Bol Bol is going to produce. He is going to certainly do crazy things on the floor that guys that are 7'3" and 7'8" wingspan like can't do, and his ability to space the floor will genuinely help whatever team he's on offensively. But like he does lazy shit on the floor, and like I've just seen him so many times out here, like being in Los Angeles, like Southern California, like the effort stuff like is like that is a question, like it's not like a fake thing.
100%.
And like the way that he defends in space is a real question. So like the upside is very real, but if he gets to the right scheme, he is genuinely like, if you told me Bol made an all-star game, I would not be like out of the question shocked, Sure. But it's going to take the right place more than like more than him just being like scheme proof. So like to me, like Keldon Johnson will fit anywhere, because every single team in the league needs a guy who is 6'6" with a 6'9" wingspan, who can pass, who plays hard, and can drive to the basket, and who I think will shoot it at some point. Every team can use DeAndre Hunter. I don't know that every team can use Bol Bol.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Okay, next. This next group is like random, and some guys we're excited about, some guys we're not excited about. So I had Jalen McDaniels in the top 20 to start the year. He is a super athlete with like pogo sticks for legs. Really, really can leap. Is starting to shoot it more and more, which is great. He is a guy who gets to the foul line a pretty good amount for a guy who's a low usage kind of guy. Very, very good offensive rebounder. But is the thing that scares me is something that I talk about on, like, I don't know that I've said this on this podcast. I probably have at some point, but like the new tweener. So like everyone talked about like tweeners being the 3-4, right? Mm-hmm. The new tweener is now the 4-5 combo, right? The guys who are too small to defend fives and too small to be like true rim protectors and too incapable laterally or too problematic defensively in space to defend fours. It's basically just the tweener has shifted down now. So I'm worried that McDaniels is a tweener in a way that will make it more difficult for him. Cool thing is that he has a brother coming up who can do all of this shit. Jaden McDaniels is fucking unbelievable. Jalen's projection is a little bit more questionable, I feel.
Yeah, that's fair. He's someone I still need to get more of a feel for. It is obviously a positive that he's spacing the floor more this year. Mm-hmm. He's already taken 4 threes in 2 games. Like you mentioned, though, kind of the tweener thing, and defensively, we're talking about someone who, we're thinking of as a big who averaged less than a block per 40 minutes last season. And that is immensely concerning whenever you're talking about someone who will most likely be, in a lot of lineups, the guy who's protecting the rim for you.
Still hasn't blocked a shot in 2 games this year.
Yeah.
Like, he is good and he is active and athletic defensively, but, like, getting out into space and, like, guarding, for instance, like Kyle Kuzma defensively is something that he will have to do with the 4. But, like, I don't know if that's going to work well at the next level out in space.
Right.
So if he can do that, definitely an NBA player. If he can't do that, that's like kind of the hinge point for him.
Sure.
I don't know where to go next.
Jontay.
You want to go to Jontay? We'll go to Jontay.
So why do you hate Jontay?
It's funny. Put it this way. I like Jontay enough that Jontay tore his ACL and he fell to like 20 on my board.
Right.
So like Jontay is a very, very good offensive player. Mm-hmm. He is the guy who I trust most out of this big class to be a good shooter. I think he is going to shoot the basketball at the NBA level. He is a legit floor spacing 5. And
in more ways, I think, than just in a spot-up fashion.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of ability to shoot off of like down screens and stuff like that in this class I'm not sure it exists with anyone else.
There might be one other guy that we'll talk about here in a minute.
Yeah.
But I really, really like his ability to shoot the basketball. He's a tremendous passer for his size, has great feel for the game offensively. Just overall a very competent basketball player on the offensive end of the floor that I think is going to fit well within a team construct. Now, he did take like 3.9 2-point shots a game last year and shot 43% from the field last year. Because he's not a great interior scorer yet. That is what he needs to work on. He needs to get bouncier and be more explosive. And I know that it's difficult to do that whenever you're on the sidelines with a torn ACL, but that's the key to his game right now. Defensively, I think he's a pretty good defensive rebounder. And I think that he does a good job of utilizing his big frame to defend shots at the basket. I also think that the obvious questions in terms of him being able to defend anyone at all in space is significant.
100%. I mean, he probably is not going to, right? Like, he is going to be a drop-back big who is going to protect the rim a little bit. Even though he doesn't have high-level vertical explosiveness, he's smart enough and uses his length well enough to be able to block shots. I mean, we're talking about a guy who had a 7% block rate as a freshman, which is pretty good. He's the only high major player since the 2010 season, which is Basketball Reference's limit, to have a 19% assist rate and a 7% block rate. And that's like a pretty unique and interesting intersection of skills. And block rate, I think, historically, at least by people who have checked the numbers, translates pretty well to the NBA. But you're right that, like, in terms of defending in space and stuff like that, he's not going to be, Wendell Carter that we've seen translated that same way. And so,
right, like, he's probably the same weight as Wendell Carter,
right?
And he just doesn't move like that.
Yeah, exactly. And if he makes up value relative to someone like Carter, it's going to be offensively, right? His ability to pass, his ability to shoot off of movement and stuff like that. And that skill is super valuable and probably, I think, something that's a little bit underrated because of the stress that it can put on opposing defenses, which is part of why I like him so much, even though there are these defensive question marks and liabilities, and now we have this injury concern to work through.
Yeah, I will probably say that I am not quite as high on him as most people are. I haven't been in the past. Like, he is like draft Twitter's darling. Like, people will
big fans.
People will fight for Jontay Porter. Having said that, like, he's a good player. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and shit on him. He's a good basketball player who play in the NBA. I think of him more as a bench player, though, to be honest.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Nassir Little.
Big jelly.
Nassir Little is fascinating in a lot of different ways. 19 points and 6 rebounds a game so far. He is chucking from 3, and I am here for it. He's taking 5 threes a game. And, like, if you close out on him hard, he will blow by you attacking closeouts. And he has this, like, awesome mix of floaters. He has this awesome mix of ability to pull up. He made, like, a Dirk fadeaway one-legged jumper where he uses his knee to create separation against UNC Greensboro. Like, his offensive skill set is outrageous and fun, and I love every bit of it. Defense. Concern.
Don't bring us down. We're talking about a guy who's 6'10", 240, does Euro steps and finger rolls.
Nassir
so wonderful.
He is genuine. Like, honestly, he is one of the most fun players in this class. Like, I love watching him play. His game is so fun and goofy and awesome. He also, like, got kind of demolished by, like, UNC Greensboro defensively.
Sure. The defense is definitely a concern and a question mark. Like, he's not going to be defending in space anytime soon. Not really much of a rim protector. I mean, again, we're talking about someone who at the NBA level is going to make his money by being outsized offensive value because he has a skill set that is unique for his position.
Yeah, to me, the difference between him being like a starter and potentially a very good starter, and probably being a bench player, which is what I think he probably is the defense. Sure. If he ever figures out how to defend anyone, he is an awesome basketball player. Like, he is so cool to watch. And, like, I actually believe in the jump shot. Like, I think his mechanics are great. He gets great rotation on the ball. It's a great release. It's clean. There's a lot of skill there.
Yeah. Super skilled big that you just don't see very much of.
Yeah. Beyond that, man.
People should watch Nassir Little. He's awesome.
You should watch Nassir Little and see what we're talking about. He is a fun player to watch. So Charles Bassey, let's talk about him. Not a particularly good start to the season, in my opinion, for Bassey. He is, like, wearing this huge, like, right leg brace right now that might be inhibiting what he's capable of, but he's just been very limited in terms of what he's doing. He's rebounding the basketball, which is what we knew he could do, and he's finishing inside, which is what we knew he could do. He's not really doing anything else.
He's blocked some shots. That's a thing that happens with someone with a 7'3" wingspan at the college level. He's pounding post-ups for Western Kentucky, which is probably not a thing he will get a ton of opportunities to do at the NBA level. He is noticeably yet to register a possession as a roll man, which is somewhat concerning in terms of NBA projections. He's not someone I'm super interested in, and probably someone I'm lower on than the consensus.
Yeah, I thought I was too coming into the year. I thought I had him. I mean, I can look at my list right now. Where did I have him? I had him at like 20.
I had him lower than that.
Yeah, like I really wanted to put him lower than that, and then like I realized Louis King is not playing right now, and Jontay Porter is hurt, and like highest battle. Period.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get exciting. Like, you're not going to name someone who we're going to be like, oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I just didn't, like, I didn't know where to put him, so I just, like, popped him into a spot. And, like, it's not that I didn't know him because I haven't seen him a lot. Like, I've seen him a ton. Like, I saw him at Pangos in April. I saw him at Basketball Without Borders. Like, I've seen him multiple times before that. So, like, I've seen him a lot over the course of the last year. And, I mean, I thought that the athleticism might kind of carry over, and I thought that maybe he'd get on like a better weight training program because he is just very top heavy right now.
Sure.
He just doesn't move well. I don't.
I mean, he is to me a worse version of Daniel Gafford, and
yeah,
that's not a good thing to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Next guy here is someone I'm a little bit more excited about, Jalen Smith. Have you watched any Maryland yet?
I've not watched any Maryland yet, but I saw him a little bit in high school.
Yeah, I've actually not watched a ton of Maryland yet either. I have seen him quite a bit, though. Very interesting player in that he's like 6'11", 6'10", maybe, something like that, 220 pounds. Kind of passive, almost, would you say that? Like, he plays a very passive style of game. I think he has potential to shoot it from three. Like, he's taken, like, 2 attempts per game in Maryland's 3 games so far. He's only made 1, but like I think that he has a real potential to shoot it. He has potential to attack closeouts. He's very good at finding the short corner and being available for open dump-offs. He rebounds well. He's very active. He's also just a very good athlete. Like, he's someone that has a very high ceiling. I'm not like 100% convinced he is like a one and done.
Yeah, I mean, my note on him is that he seems to be okay at a lot of things and not great at anything.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's
a package that we can build on and something can sprout from it, but nothing really has quite yet.
Yeah, we'll see. He's, like I said, like, he's someone I've been a fan of in the past just for like upside purposes.
Sure.
But like, I'm not 100% convinced on what to do with him yet. Again, though, like, I haven't watched Maryland yet, so maybe they're doing something wild and different with him that that is new. There are only so many hours in the day to watch teams. I'm sorry, Maryland fans.
It's tough life.
Tough life. Okay. Next. I think we're going to go to Moses Brown next.
Sure.
Moses Brown, I did not have ranked originally, not out of like not thinking about it, but out of the fact that I had him at like 70 and I don't rank freshmen beyond 50. So that's just how that goes. So I went to their game on Friday night against Long Beach State, dropped 17 and 10. He had 19 and 17 in their opener against the Fighting John Conchers, shooting 88% from the field so far. The jump shot, I never want to, or like the free throw mechanics, I guess. They're still bad, but they're not as bad as when I saw him this summer. And I just never wanted to see him shoot another shot again. They were literally the worst shot mechanics I've ever seen in my life this summer. They've improved them at UCLA to a substantial extent to where he's making 53% for the free throw line, which is good. Super active. He plays so hard. He rebounds the ball at a very high clip. He also like tries defensively, which is very good. He really wants to get after it, and his arms and his length, it's just disruptive in such a significant way. And like, I think he is taller than 7'1" as well. Like, having seen him up close, he is huge. The concerns here are that he doesn't really have anything in terms of game other than like he'll catch a post up and like drop step and go like back shoulder, or sometimes he'll go like a mini hook shot, but like there's nothing off the dribble. He has no jump shot to speak of, not much of a passer. And in terms of his defensive translation, he's a guy that is very, very skinny with very, very high hips. And I don't know if he's really ever going to defend at a high level in space.
Yeah, and that's obviously a concern. He's someone who I have not watched yet, so you're obviously well ahead of me on him. But you know, he seems to have some interesting pieces.
Yeah, he's going to be like a draft prospect that I don't know what to do with. throughout the entire season. Because, like, the other thing is, too, like, he'll just get lost random times defensively and, like, make zero impact on some possessions. And then he will entirely blow up other possessions for the offense defensively. Flashes right now are the thing with Moses Brown. He is the ultimate flashes player. And, again, like, just a guy that I'm not going to know what to do with throughout the course of the season.
Yeah.
All right, where do we want to go next? Who do you want to go with next?
Should we talk Simi Shittu?
We can talk Simi real quick. I don't think he's a one and done. I will say that. So far, averaging 16 and 13 with 2 assists, 2.5 steals, and a block. The reason I say I don't think he's a one and done is that he doesn't have a jump shot yet. He has a ton of game off the bounce. Like, you can face him up and he can really drive the ball. You can see him being like a significant weapon in short roll scenarios and like in just face up scenarios where teams have to close out on him hard. But to get the close out, you have to be able to shoot the basketball, and he can't shoot it yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly a project in terms of the ability to shoot. I think he's still regaining some of the explosions from the injuries he had in high school. But as we're going through this, I'm realizing that there are certain kinds of guys that I like, and he fits that profile, right? He can grab and go off a defensive rebound, can dribble it, has pass traits that are valuable for bigs. I think as someone who has a high basketball IQ, he's got 5 steals in 2 games, which is really impressive.
There's like a bit of like Julius Randle there.
Sure. Yeah, that's not bad. I don't know where he fits in as a scorer on offense, like you said, but right now I'm more interested in the agility, the coordination, the ability to handle and pass the ball in ways that are unique, right? He has a skill set that stands out for someone of his size.
Yes, I agree with that. I would like to see how he looks in January after he's like a little bit healthier from the knee injury. He's returning from a torn ACL that I think happened and it's not a long time. Like, it's not a long turnover rate either. Like, I think the torn ACL might have happened in like December or January. So like he's still definitely getting back.
It was very clear in the USC game that he did not have explosion in traffic around the basket.
Yeah. And like, he's never been like a crazy athlete either, but he's had more giddy up than what he had against USC for sure. Let's go to Killian Tillie. Killian Tillie, another guy who's hurt. Surprise, surprise. All of these bigs are hurt. What are we doing right now?
Dude, all the bigs broken.
Yeah. I love Killian Tillie. I am concerned that he kind of fits that like tweener mold for bigs that we talked about with Jalen McDaniels. The thing that the reason that I think he's less of that than McDaniels is that he is a bit better of a rim protector. He doesn't have like crazy block rates, but he does actually go up and contest shots around the basket. Now, he's very skinny and he might just get like blown through at the NBA level. But like, he's super, super smart. He has great technique and at least understands where to be to make it tough for opposing players.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, someone who features a somewhat unique offensive skill set. He's a really good spot-up shooter, can attack closeouts in a straight line sufficiently, can pass it a little bit. Those are the reasons to be excited about him. But like you said, I mean, we're talking about 6'10", 200 pounds, not built for the physical rigors of the NBA yet.
48% from 3 on 117 three-point attempts so far.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
You mentioned the passing. That's another thing I want to point out. So I've talked to Mark Few about this a couple of different times. Like, he loves Killian Tillie because of that. Like, he thinks that Tillie is unbelievable because of the way that he can just like solve problems for him out on the floor because of that super, super high IQ game. The fact that he can like pass the ball all over the court makes Few's life a lot easier. Like, he can initiate with Tillie. Tillie can move in space a little bit too defensively. There's just like a lot of different skill sets there for him to be like the 5th best guy on the floor all the time in the NBA.
Yeah. Yep.
Next is Goga Bitadze. Is it Bitadze? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's definitely Goga, though. I know that. I've learned that since. Goga is right now in the Adriatic League, averaging 19.7 points, 9.7 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks per game while shooting 60% from the field and shooting 33% on almost 3 3-point attempts a game.
Yeah, that's pretty good. He's definitely one of the kind of coordinated bigs.
Offensively, at least, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Not someone who's super athletic.
No.
but also good that he is spacing out to the 3-point line, which can help make up for some of that.
Yeah, and the comparison that people are making a little bit that I've seen is just in terms of the statistics is Nikola Jokic. He doesn't have that feel. He just doesn't have that kind of unbelievable outlier basketball IQ. But I'm slowly turning the corner on him as a viable maybe late first round pick, because this international class is so bad, and if you need to stash a pick, I can understand it.
Sure.
That makes some
sense.
I do have him at 50 or something right now, but if he keeps doing this, it's going to be hard to deny, I think.
Yeah, I think that's about where I have him right now, and that is a thing that makes sense to me, would be to move him up if he continues.
So the next kind of random guy that I want to bring up is Acock. The news out of Evan Daniels last night, who spoke with him, was that Acock is considering bypassing college and going to the NBA draft. He is at Putnam Sciences Academy, which is the school that Hamdou Diallo went to back in the day. Very, very high-end prep school in the Northeast. Is it New York, I believe? Or is it Massachusetts? It's one of the two.
I don't know. I think it's New York.
I think it's New York as well. So I've seen Acock quite a bit. Saw him, wrote 500 words on him this summer. As one of the big, he's one of those guys who blew up this summer. He was a solid 4-star, top 70 recruit coming into the summer, and then by the end of the Adidas Championships, he was a clear 5-star, top 30 guy in the class. 6'10", definitely a +6 wingspan. Incredible shot blocker. I think he's probably one of the 2 or 3 best shot blockers in that class. Can shoot it as well at 6'10". The fact that he can step away and knock down shots, absolutely there. The concern is that his feel is not great right now. He just kind of gets bullied also on the defensive glass, and doesn't really know where to be unless he's got the ball in his hands. Other than that, though, the tools are interesting. Wouldn't surprise me if a team fell in love if he goes through NBA draft workouts and took him in the first round. But my guess is that teams are going to see him as a significant project, and probably going to be a G League guy if he ends up going through with going to the draft process. To me, he's the perfect 2-way contract guy. And if he wants to do that and go through that, that's totally his prerogative. But that's where his game is at right now.
No, that makes sense. He's someone I've watched none of, so I need to get caught up now that there's a chance he'll be in this draft.
Okay, let's kind of run through these next guys a little bit quickly. Bruno Fernando.
I'm not super interested. I had heard he was going to shoot threes this year. He has shot 0 threes this year. He generates a lot of offense from the dunker spot. He's a fine roller. If I wanted someone like him, there's a chance I'd take Udoka Azubuike.
Yeah, it's funny. Who would I take, him or Udoka? I think I'd probably take him because I believe in his defense more.
That's fair.
Speaking of Udoka Azubuike, thoughts?
Large human with a really long wingspan who can score and finish around the basket when uncontested, but is limited otherwise, and is not someone who will ever defend in space.
Yeah, Villanova tore apart Kansas last year, basically because Udoka was on the floor. There was just no way that he could do anything against them out in space. He's been a fine shot blocker, been a fine rim protector throughout the course of his career. Offensively, he's the strongest player in college basketball. You can throw him the ball in the block and he'll get buckets, but I don't understand the translation. The idea of the translation is that he's a good pick and roll roller who can get higher than most players due to his ridiculous wingspan and can kind of take advantage of switches on the block. I think he's I think he's like Boban, but not as skilled.
I have fake Boban written down.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's basically right. Kenny Wooten. I am a sneaky Kenny Wooten stan.
I like Kenny Wooten. He blocks a ton of shots, 5.2 per 40 as a freshman. The number is lower this year, obviously, because Bol Bol is taking some of those. Going to be someone who's a pick and roll and transition rim runner, probably not going to be a jump shooter, but as a guy who can block shots and rim run, he's positive. And, we'll see about the defense in space.
Yeah, super athlete. I do think that he will defend in space at some point. Yeah. But to me, probably a 2020 guy, to be honest, because he'll have a better chance, hopefully, in 2020 to show what he can do. Aric Holman, do you have any Aric Holman thoughts?
One of the better big man shooters in the class. Really good on pick and pops, which is positive. 91st percentile spot ups, 93rd percentile is roll man, largely because of those pick and pops. And, that's a good skill set for a big man.
Yep. Defensively, I think he moves his feet reasonably well. Kind of an okay shot blocker, especially coming from the weak side as well. I'm surprised you're not more in on him given the numbers, because he blocks shots, he hits threes. There's a lot there.
Things I like for big men.
Yeah. Generally, fine player that I think if a team takes him in the second round, I will totally understand it.
Yeah.
We probably don't need to talk about Reggie Perry, who is backing him up right now at Mississippi State. I just want to noted that I really like Reggie Perry and think he's awesome. He's 6'10", 235 pounds in just all muscle as like 19 years old or whatever. He's going to be, I think, a very good college player at the very least. Any Dean Wade hype?
He's a really interesting player, has perimeter skills for a big man, but isn't big enough to be a big man. Someone who fits that tweener archetype.
Yeah,
situational power forward, probably.
100% a tweener defensively. Yeah. Definitely can't defend fours. Probably needs to be a 48% three-point shooter.
Sure.
Or just something outrageous like that. Not 48, but 40.
High.
He needs to be 43% from three, probably.
Yeah.
Which not impossible, but unlikely from the NBA line.
Yeah.
Ethan Happ. You wanted to talk about Ethan Happ.
Yeah, he's one of the most skilled bigs in college basketball. A really great passer, operates on the low block, plays smart defense in terms of generating steals and blocks. Looks like a guy who's never going to shoot it, though. And if he doesn't shoot it, it's really hard to imagine how he affects offense, given that he's a little bit undersized and probably won't be able to score at the NBA level. But it's worth noting him because of how skilled he is in every other facet of the game.
Yeah. He's averaging 20, 12, and 9 through 2 games. That's pretty good.
Yep.
Also has 2 blocks a game to add on to that. Sure, Ethan. Do your thing, man.
Yeah.
I don't really have... I just don't think he's an NBA player, really.
Totally reasonable.
Yeah. Jericho Sims, super athlete out of Texas.
Yeah, super athlete out of Texas. Great role guy. Not someone who necessarily affects shots yet, but is worth watching as someone who's going to be a dive threat off of ball screens.
Austin Wiley, very large human being out of Auburn.
Yeah, not the archetype that I'm super interested for a big man. More of the back-to-the-basket type and plotting.
Strong agree. Not really an Austin Wiley guy.
Yeah.
Taco Fall, you made me put on this list.
He's 7'6", so we have to talk about him because he can block some shots, but I don't really think he's an NBA player, most likely.
If Udoka is fake Boban, what is Taco Fall?
Taco. I don't know.
he's worse Udoka. So
Sure. Yes. Yeah. But taller.
Yeah. The last guy I want to note here, Filip Petrusev out of Gonzaga. He started the year well for a freshman. He's kind of taking Tillie's spot right now while Tillie gets back from injury. 13 points, 5 rebounds in 18 minutes a night. Kind of showing some ability to shoot it from 3 as well. So Filip Petrusev. Shout out Filip Petrusev.
Yeah. We should mention Sagaba Konate real fast.
Oh, wait. We didn't talk Konate. It's funny. Konate, we almost talked about at the top.
Yeah.
Is someone, hey, he's shooting threes now. We should talk about him.
Yeah.
And then,
so he declared last year and went to the combine. Only has a 7-foot wingspan, but is probably one of the best shot blockers in the class. Really, really great timing. The dunk that Zion had against Kentucky where he grabbed the ball, Konate just does that regularly and sometimes with 2 hands. And now he shoots threes. So if he can be a competent spot-up shooting three-point threat, I think there's a reasonable case he should have an NBA look.
I would have never guessed that he would be able to shoot threes. Have you ever shaken his hand?
No, but he made some mid-range shots last year, and it seemed within the realm of possibility. But I did not expect him to do it this quickly, and I certainly did not expect him to take 4 in a game.
Oh, he shot 79% from the line. Based off of his past, it makes sense. but like his hands like engulf your hands whenever you like shake his hand. It makes like his hand like covers the entire ball. I don't understand the physics of how he can get a decent shot off.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. But he's doing it.
But he does it. Yeah, he does a really good job. I'm excited. If he can shoot, he's like maybe a first-round pick.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Chris, do you have anything else?
Nope, got nobody.
I think that's about all I got to. I got to go work out, and then I got to go to Fantastic Beasts tonight, man.
Enjoy that. I didn't know what that was until you told me earlier, and I Googled it, but it seems sort of interesting.
What are you doing, man? Are you a Harry Potter guy? Like, get into this shit.
I'm not a Harry Potter guy. I'm not really a movie guy. Live a sheltered life.
Of watching Sagaba Konate.
Yeah, just Sagaba Konate, two-handed block highlights on repeat.
Chris, tell the people where they can find your work.
You can find my work at Sporting News or on Twitter at SuStoneHoops.
Go follow Chris. He does great work. Obviously, he's on the podcast all the time. We'll be back at some point next week, probably. I don't know. We'll figure it out. The weeks are melding together now that I have to watch like 4 basketball games or 5 basketball games a day. Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. Wrote on Darius Garland earlier this week. You should read that. Gonna have something up on Belmont wing Dylan Windler later this week. He has a really cool story. That's about it. So until next time, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. But until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.